This is Mark Kermode. You're listening to Raw 12:51 AM.
Hello, welcome back to All Things Arts on Raw 12:51 AM, where I'm still joined by Gina Liggins.
Lucky you.
Well, lucky all of us, I think. Lucky audience. So after we saw their finest, we had a very short break before returning to the Arts Centre about, 30 minutes later, to catch the National Theatre live screening of Ossessione. Now, this is the latest production by Ivo van Hove? Is it Ivo?
Yeah, Ivo van Hove.
Is it Hove? Hove,
yeah,
you pronounce it. Okay, Ivo van Hove, the director behind the brilliant 2014 Young Vic production of Arthur Miller's View from the Bridge. And it's a new stage adaptation of Luchino Visconti's 1943 film Ossessione.
Ossessione.
Which is often classed actually as the first Italian neorealist film, as you know. And the film was based on the James N. Cain novel, The Postman Always Rings Twice, which obviously was, of course, later turned into the infamous film noir starring Lana Turner. Now, the production stars Jude Law and, another name that's really hard to pronounce, Helena Rijn. She's from the Netherlands. She plays the central female character, which we'll get into in a minute.
The lady.
Giovanna, sorry. And so basically, this production tells the story of Gino, played by Jude Law, a down-at-heel and handsome drifter. And at a roadside restaurant, he encounters husband and wife Giuseppe and Giovanna.
You know, that's not what they're called in the play, right?
That's not what they're called in the play?
No, it's Hannah in the play, isn't it?
This was from the play website that's giving this information.
Well, his name's her name's definitely Hannah.
Hannah, don't
Yeah,
Hannah, but I think Giovanna, like Hannah, is like a nickname.
I don't think so.
Anyway.
Anyway.
Yeah, because he's called Gino. Because Jude Law's really...
Yeah, his name's Gino.
Because he's really British in it, and I'm like, why is he called Gino when he sounds...
Gino.
When he sounds like from London. But anyway.
Anyway, carry on.
Anyway, so Hannah and Gino then are irresistibly attracted to each other, and they begin a fiery affair and a plot to murder her husband. But in this chilling tale of passion and destruction, the crime only serves to tear them apart. So, this was the first time I witnessed Jude Law performing live on stage, whereas I know, Gina, you've seen him a few times and things. Do you think this was a worthy introduction to his theatrical talent?
No, I don't.
And why was that?
Well, I mean, I've seen him before play Henry V on stage, and I've got to say, he really was incredible in that. And I mean, obviously he's working with Shakespeare, so I mean, you know, it gives you a lot of leeway. Better work. I would say the problem, I mean, there are lots of things that I can say about this play, but I think when it comes to Jude Law alone, I think he did the best with the material that he was given. So I do think that he did a good performance. I really do. But I just think that that he was restricted by the material and by the dialogue and by the play. So I actually think it's they kind of squandered a very good talent through him.
I thought he was very good, but I thought he was outshone a bit by, I can't say her name, Helena.
Do you?
I thought she was very, very good. I mean, they were both very good.
She creeped me out.
Yeah, but I think that was the point. I don't think she was supposed to be kind of, you know...
The problem is as well is that, like, because I know the film quite well.
Well, I'm just going to say, because I've not seen the film, but I have seen The Postman Rings Twice, Always Rings Twice, sorry, and a film like Double Indemnity, which I think I got very similar kind of shades of while watching it in terms of its story. But you have seen the original film on which this is based, and how did you find that in its
I mean, I couldn't help. I mean, I really firmly believe that when you're watching a certain medium, you should treat it separately. You know, if it's an adaptation, you should treat it separately than the original source text. Do you know what I mean? Like, I fundamentally believe that with things like Shakespeare, for example, if you make it into a film, you should watch it as a film, not as a play on film. Yeah, exactly. And and vice versa. I mean, I've never seen a film be put on stage before like this, where it hasn't been like a musical or a children's thing. So I've never seen this before. So I thought it was quite interesting actually experiencing that for the first time. But I definitely found it very difficult to detach the two, just because, you know, the film has so much going on in there. You know, it's not just about this man and woman who have this carnal passion for each other and start having a lot of sex, kill their husband, and then they fall apart. It's, you know, there's so much going on. And I know, that's literally it. That's what happens. Like, the reason that the film is made is, you know, it's kind of to signify something that's going on during that time period in Italy, and things that people are suffering with, you know, this kind of isolation and these frustrations and all of that kind of stuff, which is really important, like culturally, that it's the way the film works is very important. With the play, because there isn't any... I actually read this from another critic. I can't remember who said this. It might have been in the Spectator piece.
We'll talk
But
about it in a minute,
they were saying the problem is because there isn't any kind of context or setting to this play, it means that it just kind of feels meaningless. Do you know what I mean? Like there's no context whereby you know that it's Italy and that they're living in a really isolated, barren place, and they don't get to see a huge amount of people. And
I think that was kind of communicated.
I don't think it was.
I mean, because the staging was very minimalist and very bare, and I think when I first started watching it, I did kind of get the idea that okay, these people are supposed to be quite isolated, because there's not many interactions with other characters really until Gino comes into it, and the whole staging was very minimalist. So I kind of from that I did think, oh okay, they're supposed to be quite, like I said, isolated, and their lives are supposed to be a bit barren. So if that's what you're saying, the film didn't do, then the play did do. Sorry, I did get that bit.
There's just, I don't know, I just think that the thing is the film does so much, like it's very much about a period piece, like in the film, that's what they're trying to convey, and I just don't think there was enough of that. Fine, there was a bit of isolation in the play, but that wasn't really enough to warrant the storyline, to warrant the narrative, to warrant what meaning could come from it.
So do you think it was just unnecessary to do this play at this time? Do you think a play that's being put on should be revived because there's some meaning behind it, as in there's some kind of there's some relevance maybe in the world today?
Well, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, like, I think that's a kind of really impossible thing to be able to say, because I mean, something like Brief Encounter, for example, which is a phenomenal film and it's been put on stage. That is something that I think is always brilliant. Yeah, I think that's a brilliant narrative and beautiful story
that can be told at any time.
I don't know if it could be. That's the thing. I think that's the point, is that it can be shown and it should be put on stage now. But that is something, I think it's something that is so period specific, and I think that this play and this story is very period specific in the same way, and that's why I actually don't necessarily think that it's something that works out of context, out of periodic context, which is why maybe if they had tried to situate it more within this kind of very difficult, post-war or during war kind of
felt a bit more
kind of difficult landscape, then I feel like there would have been more to take from it, rather than just this couple who want to have a lot of sex.
That is, I
don't know, but I definitely think there are people who enjoyed it. My dad really enjoyed this, which I think is really interesting.
Because it is interesting, because when we came out of it, I initially did actually like it a lot more than you. And whilst I still think that is the case, and I still enjoyed it more than you did, I think upon reflection, the more I thought about it and how I felt and responded to it, I didn't actually really enjoy the production. I just kind of, like I said, the performances were solid, and I thought Jude Law was very watchable and engaging. But like I said, I thought Helena Rain, if that's her name, bless her, was kind of outshone him a bit. But the production just felt very long.
Yeah,
now, bearing in mind, this production was less than 2 hours. There was no interval, and which is fairly short, I think, for a theatre production. I mean,
it is short.
It just felt very slow, very kind of dull. And I mean, the Spectator piece you referenced earlier, I had a look at, and I think, and another review I looked at, I think described it as being like treacle, basically like treacle, because it's so slow and just kind of a bit stodgy.
Yeah, a bit stodgy.
And it just kind of, that's what I came away from it. And I mean, I didn't know at the time if that was just because we'd just seen a film and it's been a long day, so I was like, we're just tired. Am I not in the right mindset for this? But upon reflection, I just think actually no. I just think it was a little bit just dull. I think, which is interesting, because if you listen to the premise and it sounds like murder, affairs, it sounds could be really passionate, sex, anger, murder. It sounds all interesting.
Well, I think stodgy is an interesting word though, because I think I came away thinking that was an incredibly clunky production. Like, I think in terms of like the theatrical element of it, I think that the blocking and the staging was very clunky and unsubtle and a little bit
in terms of symbolism and things.
Well, in terms of symbolism and literally like like just in terms of them moving from one space to the next, like the bits. There's a bit where he'll
I think I know
where he starts running away,
and he jumps. It's supposed to symbolize him.
Yeah, it's supposed to symbolize him running away. But in terms of like the literal blocking of it, I just found it a bit funny and a little bit awkward. Do you know what I mean? Because he like goes, "Oh no, I can't deal with this," and then he just jumps on a running machine, and the lights go red, and it's like supposed to be really intense. And again, I mean, first of all, it's very, very unsubtle in its symbolism. But secondly, I genuinely just thought, the physical movements on stage were just not very well blocked and a little bit clunky. And I don't like that, because I like theatre where you feel like, there's there's a smoothness to it, you know,
Flow.
and there's a flow, and I just feel like they didn't achieve that in this. But then that does lead me on to the next point, where I do think that on top of that, the unsubtlety of the symbolism got to a point where I was a bit like, oh, come on. Like,
Rubbish on the stage,
I feel
representing, turmoil and things.
Yeah, I just feel like they don't give, you know, when it's really unsubtle symbolism like that, I just feel like they're not giving the audience enough credit.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like, they're not treating you as intelligent, kind of understanding people. They're trying to rub it in your face. And the thing is, I don't need that, and I don't like that. But things like, I
feel like if you're already going to see a production like this, you need to be aware that your audience are already going to be, I think, of a certain kind, in the sense that this isn't, you know, your usual, the kind of thing you just pop down to the theatre to see because it's going to be an easy watch. People will go and seek this out because they're aware of the original Visconti film, or they've seen previous productions of it. And I think, like you said, I think the way it was just kind of so obvious. Oh, the C's on stage. The C's supposed to represent this, and the rubbish is
freedom and his want for it, his desire.
There's passion. Oh, let's have a red light, and it's just it was just a bit like, oh, it's a little bit A-level.
Yeah,
amateur,
it's very A-level.
Very amateurish, very much like, okay.
What is interesting, though, is that I think, and my dad actually admitted this, that's why he liked it, because he does go to the theatre quite a lot, but I'd say he's pretty dense in a lot of ways. Like, he, not stupid, but like, he doesn't really pick up on, you know, symbolism and metaphors in the same way that somebody who studied English literature did. Yeah. So, I mean, to an extent, I actually think that's why he liked it, because it was so clear in its symbolism, and it really kind of made it obvious, and he was like, right, okay, so there's rubbish on stage because of this, you know, whereas for me and you and other theatre goers, perhaps it was just a little bit over the top. So it's funny how different people take it in different ways. So my dad liked that because he didn't have to, you know, he didn't have to swim through loads of kind of, you know, really subtle symbolic things to try and find it. It was just there for him, which is great for him, but frustrating for us.
I do like that sometimes when it is quite obvious, because it does make you feel like, oh, I know what's going on. But then it's when it's all of the symbolism is so unsubtle and kind of unnuanced in a way that you're just kind of like, oh, okay. It's a little bit like paint by numbers, like, you know, okay, this represents this. Okay, let's move on to the next. This represents this. Okay, and I just kind of felt also. I remember you using this word when we left. Quite pretentious and quite self-indulgent as a production. And it's very interesting because I'd seen the National Theatre screening of Ivo van Hove's production of View from the Bridge, which you saw live, I think.
Yeah, I saw it live.
And which was brilliant. And again,
did you not see it in the theatre?
No, I saw it.
You saw it on screen.
Because not living anywhere near London, I do, you know, have to rely on a lot of. This is the thing. This is why I love these National Theatre screenings, because it allows you to see these brilliant productions that you wouldn't really get the chance to see unless you're nearby. And this is, I think, maybe why I felt, actually, upon reflection, just quite disappointed by this, because previous productions I'd seen included, like I said, The View from the Bridge. I'd also seen Helen Mirren in the audience. I'd also seen Gillian Anderson in A Streetcar Named Desire. All brilliant productions, brilliant performances, really outstanding. So I think my expectations going in were like, if this is a production that's being screened across nationwide to cinemas, there's got to be a reason. It's going to be good. Yeah. And I kind of came away from it like, that was good, that was okay, but not quite on the same level as previous things I'd seen. But this is why I was kind of so disappointed, because I thought A View from the Bridge was brilliant.
Yeah,
and again,
which obviously was directed by the same guy.
And it was quite a minimalist staging for that and things, and that really worked for me. And I think it really allowed the kind of the psychological aspect of the characters and the kind of the story to come out. Yeah. Whereas, this just felt very, like you said, clunky, and it's a bit of a shame.
I think, and you know, what's funny is that I remember saying to you when we came out, the fact that we know that he directed both of those productions means that you're obviously going to compare them, you know, and you want to see a comparison and contrasting of them. And the problem is that he repeated so much material. You know, I think it's okay to have things. So he's a minimalist director. You can see that, you know, like his staging tends to be quite minimalist. That I can get on board with. But there were some things which are just too similar to View from the Bridge, such, you know, like the use of the blood pouring down. You remember in A View from a Bridge, like they all end up being kind of like, you know, in a bath of
like
blood.
Oil, oil.
Yeah, but it symbolises blood, and like it's the same kind of thing. Again, they kind of get covered in this blood. Again, very unsubtle in its imagery and symbolism and stuff. So that was very similar in both productions. Also, the use of very saturated, extreme red light. It was something that, you know, he crossed over a lot with the two productions. And I think that when it gets to that point where you can see so many similarities between two plays which are incredibly different, then it gets frustrating for me, and I just go, okay, well, these aren't just things that the director kind of likes, these are just repetitions, and that just feels unoriginal to me.
We are going to have to leave it there, because again, we've spoken a lot about this. Now, it isn't an awful production. I just want to say it really isn't, and that it's not, the worst thing, of course.
There are good bits in it.
I think there are elements of good performances, and I did like some of the minimalist staging, but not all of it. But I think overall, it just kind of, I think if I'd paid the £20 RRP for the National Theatre live screen, I wouldn't have been very happy. Equally, if I'd paid, like you said,
65
up
quid,
to 60, 70 quid
like
to be live in the theatre, I'd feel a bit cheated. But no, it's showing until, this is being performed, at the Barbican Theatre in London until the 20th of May. So you really have only got a couple of days left to check it out. But I think the general consensus is that we wouldn't bother. Gina, out of 5, what are you going to go for?
Oh gosh, that's really tough.
I don't really do this with theatre, but I thought,
I know.
Let's see.
Oh, I don't want to be 1.
Okay, because initially I was thinking 3, but then actually upon reflection, because I don't like it as much, I've gone for a 2.
Maybe 1.5 for me. I mean, it's definitely between 1 and 2, because there are still some really good elements in it, but there were just too many things for me which really brought it down. Well, so yeah, pretty low.
Said, do check it out. 2 from me, 1.5 from Gina. 3.5 out of a combined 10 isn't really
not great.
But do check it out. You might love it, and we might be wrong, but I doubt it.
There's a lot of topless Jude Law in it, so that picked it up a little bit.
Oh yes.
My sexy body.
There's nudity from both sides, although more the woman actually than Jude Law.
Well, you see her boobies, yeah, but you see you see a lot of Jude Law topless though, which I thoroughly enjoyed, but again, not particularly subtle.
Okay, well, thanks very much for coming in, Gina. Good
no
luck
worries.
with your other exams, and thank you for joining us straight after your Shakespeare exam. Go and have a well-deserved rest.
I will.
Right, don't go anywhere. We've got plenty more coming up. That's all next on All Things Arts.